Jurgen, was that a very frustrating night for you?
Yes, of course. That was not a good game, so most of the time from both teams, pretty much, both teams didn't really create a lot until they scored the goals, which we saw in the first half a little bit coming, because my colleague was pretty frustrated that they didn't play these balls in that area where they had wanted to make an advantage with the size of Hateboer or Ilicic, but couldn't avoid it anyway or defend it anyway. So no, it's a deserved defeat in a difficult game.
Were you looking for more tempo, for more movement, more creativity? I mean,
look, the ref brought a lot of tempo in the game. He didn't whistle a lot, and that makes it, of course, in a period like this, even more difficult. It was, I'm not sure, both sides. Not that he said for us or for them. Both sides just let the game run, and it was unbelievably intense for the boys. And in that period, you need 1 or 2 breaks, 3 or 4 breaks in a game, and you can take the ball back. And it didn't happen. So we changed 5 times. That always costs rhythm. That's normal. You take that. Usually, when the first half is gone, then it settles a little bit more. But it was for some players who didn't play for a while and stuff like this, and you could see it was very intense for them. And so we didn't really found a way in the game and to create. We had not enough bodies between the lines, not enough bodies for in behind and all these kind of things. So yeah, what can I say? It's easier to talk about a good game when you have a lot of situations that you can talk about. But tonight you can ask me what you want, but there are not a lot of situations from us where we could say, yeah, here it was close or there it was close. We had moments, but not real chances, and so how is that? Deserved defeat.
Yeah, I mean, statistics can be used in all sorts of ways and maybe misleading, but there wasn't a shot on target by Liverpool tonight, which
I'm not surprised about that. So then it's difficult to win a game. But how I said, that's I'm afraid to say, but I think it could happen not only to us, it could happen to other teams as well. You, my special friends, you ask us to go on Saturday at 12:30, which is nearly a crime, to be honest. Nearly a crime. But has nothing to do with that game tonight. But congratulations for that. And so now we have to just, my only interest in the moment is just, I got thumbs up, nobody injured. And now let's recover immediately, take it. The boys are completely disappointed, frustrated, really, but we don't have time for it, to be honest. So it's just get fresh legs and as quick as possible and go again. That's it.
Thank you, Jurgen.
Welcome.
But I just hope they don't live to rue this in terms of the way that he flipped it up in terms of his team selection. Really changed it up. And I think he was in a position to do that. But
in hindsight,
which is a lovely thing to have, he maybe looks at it maybe different. I hope he doesn't again come a cropper later on in the group, because as James said rightly so, there, Ajax are a tough team. They're going to be a hard game, so they've got to get a result.
And Atalanta are a tough team, but I suppose they're human beings. They have to have an occasional bad day.
Yeah, and I think you always must look at the positives as well. And if you're going to have a bad day, probably tonight was a good time to have it. You're top of the league. Yeah. It's all looking quite rosy. I mean, if you'd said at the start of the group that you're going to need 1 win out of your last 2 games, Liverpool would have definitely taken that. So look at the positives. If you're going to lose one, then tonight's not a bad one. You've rested a few players. It's not ideal, don't get me wrong, but it's better that than on Sunday.
Yeah. Jurgen Klopp's been whining about the fixture pile-up, which is inevitable for all the teams playing in Europe this season. It is hard to maintain this consistency of performance, the level of performance that they've been producing, certainly in recent weeks.
Well, it's been superhuman, hasn't it? The way they've performed week after week. With the short break as well, they've started the new season on absolute fire. So I think it's proved that they are human. They have had a slight drop-off on this result today, but it's still a good experience for young players today.
Yeah. Is it a good experience when it goes wrong, when you get the chance? Or can it affect you in a bad way? It depends on the individual, I guess.
No, I mean, with some of these young players, they're coming into this team now and all they've seen is good. I think sometimes it can maybe help you to perhaps lose a game here or there, and learn that kind of experience and how to bounce back from that, come back stronger. I think you do from experience. You learn more. I think you self-analyse. You look at yourself a little bit deeper when you do lose a game or you don't perform as well. I think when you
should do.
You should do, and you hope that these young players will do that, especially with the experience around them, helping them, all the analysts, etc. Yeah. But I definitely, when we were winning, it was all rosy in games. You win a game and you're just on to the next one. Yeah. Whereas when you don't do well and there's a problem, you start looking back.
What was the difference? Obviously, you played under a great manager as well. What was the difference between Sir Alex Ferguson when you're going well and then suddenly you have a bad result? How did he handle things?
He was never too high when we won and never too low when we lost. Yeah. And that is one of the big things I learnt when I went to Manchester United. I used to be down in the doldrums if we lost a game or I didn't perform well. And it would really have a hangover for probably 3 or 4 days. But a big club like Liverpool are now, it's every 2 or 3 days they're playing a game.
So when did the hairdryer come out then? Because that was famous, infamous.
The hairdryer, I'll be honest with you, normally came out when you were doing well. It was almost to keep you on that rich vein of form and not to get complacency. I think great managers and good leaders are scared of complacency, scared of actually resting on your laurels. You've got to make sure people are always on the edge, always waiting to... They're making sure that they don't fall by the wayside and get complacent. And it's a hard thing to do, especially when the run Liverpool on at the moment is phenomenal. And being in a change room that wins, it can be easy for some players to start taking their foot off the gas. You need the Milners, the Hendersons, the Van Dijks, etc., to make sure they step on them people that do that.
And definitely in the dressing room now, there'll be positive messages. Definitely, there will be no picking people out and saying you're not doing well enough and you're not going to play again and things like that. You save that, as Rio says, for when you're winning, and you'll have a little pop at someone that here and there. But tonight it'll all be, come on, get ourselves ready now for the weekend. Big game on Saturday.
OK, let's have a look at the goals that Atalanta scored tonight, starting with the first one, Peter.
I mean, you have to say they were the better side. They didn't create too much in the first half, did they? But what a ball that is for Gomez. I mean, it was a breathtaking ball.
He was the best player on the pitch, wasn't he?
He was a class act all game, wasn't he? And that was a fantastic ball and a great finish. But he just switched off a little bit on the back post.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to pick faults, both full-backs really. One letting a cross go and come in, and one on the back of the on the back post letting his man go. And both goals came from the same area really. So it might be a little point that Jurgen Klopp's going to look at.
Well, you pretty much introduced it, so let's see that second goal coming in from the left again, across and.
Listen, I think in these games there's moments that define the game, and a lot of it's to do with concentration, and we will see here in a minute the concentration of the young centre back Williams. He comes out to kind of engage with the striker, but he goes beyond him and forgets about the next phase.
Should he come out at all there, Rio? Should he stay where he is?
As a player next to him, he can leave that. The ball's not going to him. He's got to stay with his man in the box. And I think you'll see on the next angle, Matip looks around as if to say, "Where are you?" And that's experience. That chasing the ball, trying to affect a situation that you can't affect at all. So it's sometimes remaining calm and composed and saying, "Right, here's my man," taking a step back, and so you can see the game and. He'll learn from that, and that happens a lot. That's his learning curve there, really. Perhaps if he's going out on loan, he doesn't get punished for something like that. But in the Champions League, that's where you get punished, and that's where he's going to learn from.
Yeah, we mentioned Papu Gomez, an Argentinian number 10, ironically enough, was the star performer on this day of all days when we've lost the greatest, well, arguably the greatest number 10 of all time.
Yeah, that's right. He was brilliant tonight. We're talking, you see the obvious things, the creation of goals and through balls and things like that. But at a place like Anfield, you need a player as well that can hold the ball up. And me and Rio were talking about during the first half about breathers that you can give your team. Just keeping the ball. Some people they find it hard doing that. They're good maybe chasing the ball over the top or finishing, but some people are not that comfortable in possession. And he gave his team an outlet today, not only just with his keeping of the ball, but also with his balls into the box, the vision. You see this one shooting from distance, but he had the whole array tonight, little magician.
This is the type of player that I feel that we've lacked in England for many years, that we don't have the player that, not in terms of like he's got skills, etc. It's just gets your team time on the balls, gives your teams breathers, takes the ball for 3 or 4 seconds.
One or two of the younger ones have got the potential to do that. Phil Foden, Grealish keeps the ball comfortably.
And that's why it's
Maddison.
so exciting for England now that we've got players that could maybe do this. We'll have to see if they can do it at the next level in international football. But that type of player is so important in the levels you go up to enable your team to get up the pitch, and they're important players, vital.
Yeah, he's a nice little footballer.
No, very good. What he is, he's comfortable even when he's got a man on him. You know, people play it into his feet. You know, strong on the ball. He takes his time. You know, and he buys, you know, the defence a lot of time on the ball.
Yeah, he's not happy with the congestion of fixtures, but I guess it's the nature of the season. Unfortunate circumstances. Every game's been shown live on television, which is appreciated, I think, by the supporters. You know, you have to have some sympathy with them when they have that many games. But I suppose in many ways playing this Saturday coming would actually be a help to play early, because of the now becomes a very important game next week in the Champions League.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at it both ways. I think, listen, everyone's in the same boat, really. I think it doesn't make it right, but you've just got to get on with it. But I think if you're looking at Liverpool's squad, the depth of his squad, they're sitting in a better position than most. Because of the depth of their squad and the success they've had of late.
They've needed it because of the injuries, I suppose.
Yeah, and they've had a few injuries as well. But it's a challenge, that's no doubt. And you can understand his frustrations, but I don't think he's the only person. He's just the loudest one speaking at the moment.
Yeah. Michael?
Well, he sums it up, really, doesn't he? I love listening to him after, because, you know, he's very honest. And we're the same, you know. The whistle goes and you think, oh, how are we going to talk about that? I mean, let's get it right. It was a really, really poor performance, as poor as we've seen from Liverpool for a long, long time. The manager knows that. We know that. It's one of those that you just think, right, just let's put it to the side and let's just focus on the next one.
Yeah. It's an interesting point, though, about television, because obviously television funds a lot of football nowadays, and it has to have its slots. It is difficult on all sides, especially when a season is being concertinaed. That's like a month less to get it into.
And I suppose the clubs have agreed to it at the start of the season, but we're in unforeseen circumstances, I suppose, at the moment, and that's what he's complaining about. He's saying maybe we could adjust. But listen, managers have been complaining about lots of games coming back from Europe since the start of time. I remember, you know, Alex Ferguson always complaining about the amount of fixtures, about the international games. It will always happen, and it will always continue to happen.
Yeah, it will, and obviously the strongest teams, the ones playing in Europe, will find it the most difficult, but they're generally the ones with the biggest squads anyway.